Hi, thank you for tuning into the Short Stacks. I'm Lisa Quintero, Young Adult Librarian.
And I'm Lizzie Jelly, Virtual Engagement Librarian.
This is the show where we talk to you about what we've been reading, listening to, or watching. And today we are going to be talking about what we've been watching.
Oh, are we ever?
So yeah, Lizzie and I both actually watched a couple of the same movies, and then we both watched some different stuff. And we covered a bunch of different genres. So we're going to start off by talking about some of the same stuff that we watched, and giving you guys some tips on things that you might want to check out as the weather gets colder and you want, cozy season. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Even though, I don't know, today it's really warm out and it doesn't really feel like fall. I'm ready for that fall vibe where you just stay home, put on a good movie, pajamas as soon as you get home, big blanket. So we've got some good ones for that kind of energy if you're on that wavelength.
Yeah, so which one did you want to talk about first?
Well, being the person that I am, I want to talk about
the rom-com.
Obviously, I want to talk about Lost City.
Okay. So we both watched The Lost City, which came out this year, which is a romantic comedy starring Sandra Bullock as Loretta Sage, a romance author, and Channing Tatum as Alan or Dash, who is the cover model, Fabio, for her books.
It's incredible, actually.
Oh, and also the villain is Daniel Radcliffe, playing Abigail Fairfax.
It's so good, actually. And there's Brad Pitt makes a very brief cameo
as Jack
as well.
Traynor. Yes.
Star-studded, this one.
Yes. So yeah, what was your favorite part of it?
Oh my gosh, I have too many favorite parts, actually. One, I was like, wait, an adventure romance with a romance novelist leading lady just screaming into the void, so excited. And I love that there was so many romance novel tropes incorporated into the plot itself. Mm-hmm. So it's if I could read a romance novel and see it play out in front of me, that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we always get that in rom-coms on the screen, but some of them, if you're a romance reader, you're going to be just gagging at all the tropes that you see. I love the oops, I'm shirtless came up all the time. The slowly losing clothing as the movie goes on.
Yes, the I have to heal you because you're hurt right now.
I gotta rub your back.
Put some medicine on you.
Oh, absolutely.
Be your nurse.
And oh no, only one bed. But it was a hammock, not a bed. But still, they're oh no, I guess we have to cuddle. It was just, it was glorious, delicious. If you are a romance lover, it's everything you want.
Yeah. One thing I really liked about it, though, is I feel like in older romance movies, the roles would have been switched where Channing Tatum would have been the more of the Sandra Bullock character and she would have been more the Channing Tatum character where he'd be saving her. But in this, she's doing more of the saving of him because he is he's very sweet, but he is not the smartest person.
Absolutely.
And
I love that.
Yeah. And he obviously has feelings for her. But yeah, and she is very smart, and she describes herself as a sapiosexual, and so she's just...
it's so cringe, too. But it's so much I guess that's another trope, too. It's very much Sunshine and Grump. Sandra Bullock's character, Loretta, she's so grumpy.
She's so grumpy.
Cranky.
Yeah.
And she's getting a lot of those masculine traits that we see, and there's a lot of just gender role reversal in this film, which was so fun. It added to the comedy without making fun of anybody, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I also I was a big fan of Indiana Jones movies growing up, and so I liked that kind of vibe because the premise of the story is that Loretta wrote this romance novel, and it takes place in this Mesoamerican city, and there's this lost treasure, and the city's kind of like the lost city of Atlantis, and so she and the main character of her book and Dash go in search of this treasure. And so Daniel Radcliffe's character, Abigail Fairfax, decides that he wants to go look for the lost treasure for real, and Loretta Sage has her husband died and he was an archaeologist, and so he actually had some knowledge of this stuff, and she had some knowledge of how to translate things and stuff because she had worked with him in graduate school on some of that. And so Abigail Fairfax comes and kidnaps her because he wants her to help him find this treasure, and then Channing Tatum comes to try to rescue her.
Just bumbling in, I'm gonna get her!
And epically fails.
But in the nicest way. He really does try.
He really does try, yes. And that's, when we see Jack Traynor, Brad Pitt's character, come in and also help with the rescue. And he is what you anticipate the leading man would be like. And,
oh, absolutely.
And then I won't spoil it, but something happens to him. And so then it ends up just being her and Channing Tatum.
Exactly. Yes. Everything that goes wrong, everything that could go wrong does go wrong in a lot of ways. And there's so many just like little jokes that come through that too. Like everything you expect should happen in like the way that we want like the gender roles to work, the way we want like the plot to advance. The opposite tends to happen a lot, which makes it really fun and keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
And there's so many things I could talk about. But I think my absolute favorite part is the little scene between Loretta and Alan, when she really makes a jab at romance readers and she kind of dismisses her own work. And she's like, I hate that my romance novels are so popular. Like, why are people reading this absolute trash? Like, my academic research never went anywhere. And she's just really mad and kind of disparaging. To her own fans who are like there for her at an author event, not like directly to them, but she's saying this to Alan. And I really love how Alan stands up for them. And he's like, would you stop? I can't remember the exact quote. And I tried to look it up so many times, but Google was not very helpful. And I was like, I'll just have to watch it again. Oh, darn. But he really goes at her. And he's like, how dare you do that to your fans? How dare you talk trash about something that brings people so much joy? And he talks about like when he first started as the cover model for the series that he was really embarrassed and he didn't want to tell his friends or his family that he was doing this. But then he had a really like heartwarming interaction with a fan who recognized him on the street and like wanted a picture and was like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. And it totally changed his perspective. He's like, I love that I'm a part of this and that this brings people so much joy and so much happiness when their life is hard. And I was like, oh, right in the feels.
Yeah.
That's why I read these. Like, that was just for me. But it was so incredible. And it really kind of puts Loretta in her place a little bit to be like, I really shouldn't be talking trash about these people who have been, paying my bills just because I'm going through a lot of really hard things. That doesn't minimize their joy about this thing that I've created. Yeah. And so it's a really cool moment. And I really just loved it so much.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend you check it out if you're into rom-coms. And even if you're not into rom-coms, you might actually enjoy it.
Absolutely. There's lots of humor. There's like the adventure component. Yeah. Absolutely. There's, the danger.
The danger.
It's a crowd pleaser.
Yes. And yeah, I love Sandra Bullock, and I also enjoy Channing Tatum quite a bit. So.
Oh, absolutely. And their dynamic together was really good, too.
It was. They had great chemistry, but... Yeah, so we can go on to the next one, which is much darker.
Like huge difference, actually. So we really ran the gamut with our choices.
Yes. So the next one was this year's The Batman. Starring Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle, a.k.a. Catwoman, and Paul Dano as the Riddler. And it also has Jeffrey Wright as Lieutenant Jim Gordon, and he was in the Hunger Games movies. Yes. I wasn't really sure going into this what to expect because the only other things that I've really seen Robert Pattinson in were Twilight and The Lighthouse, which are two completely different movies.
Very different energies.
Also, I wasn't really a huge fan of either of those movies.
Oh, no.
But I was like, I'm going to give it a shot because I do enjoy Batman and the Batman, canon. And I really like Catwoman, so I was like, all right, and I think Zoe Kravitz is awesome, so I was like, I'll give this a shot. And I watched it, and I actually enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as the Christian Bale Batmans, but I did like it more than all the other Batmans I've seen. And I've seen all of them, except for, I don't think I ever saw the Ben Affleck one, because I was just like, no, I can't do it.
I think that's, aside from this one, that's one of the more recent ones. Yeah. That's just Batman. Anyway.
Yeah, because they did Batman, and then they did the Batman and Superman one, and I was just like, I'm not a huge Superman person, and so... But the Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale.
There's been a lot of Batmans.
I've seen all those Batmans. I also grew up watching the Adam West Batman TV show. And I enjoyed a lot of the cartoons growing up as well. But yeah, what did you think of it?
I also really liked it. And this is coming from someone who struggles with superhero movies a lot. But part of why I struggle with superhero movies a lot is because I have to understand a whole universe and I get very overwhelmed and I say, never mind, I don't want to watch it anymore because I don't know half these people and everyone else in the theater does. But this one, what I really enjoyed is it's kind of set outside of the DC extended universe. Like there's still familiar characters, familiar plot points and all that kind of stuff, but you can watch this as a one-off and you're not missing anything. Like that's it. And it was really I don't know. Sometimes when I'm moody, I don't want a romance. I want something dark and gritty. And this was both of those things, like both literally dark and like thematically dark.
Yes, yeah. I watched this in my living room. I had to turn all the lights off so I could see what was happening on screen because it was like both dark and like thematic stuff, but then also just visually. Yeah. It's a very dark film. And so you're like, all right, it has to be dark in the room so I actually see what's happening on the screen.
Literally. Like, even, like, the daytime scenes, which are kind of few and far between, initially. Like, it's still dark. Like, it's always cloudy. Like, I think we only get, like, maybe 1 or 2 glimpses of sunshine.
I don't remember any sunshine.
There's, like, one towards the very end, and I think it's, like, just a little bit of a sunrise. But don't worry, there's lots of clouds. So. But it's really long, too, because I saw it in the theaters ages and ages ago, it feels like. So I had a little help with the darkness because I was in a very large, dark room. But it was, even though it was, I think it's almost 3 hours long.
Yeah, it's a long movie. Yeah, there was a point where I was like, is this going to be over soon?
Whereas I was kind of the opposite. Like, I was pretty into it, but like maybe that was the atmosphere and like that I had a big bucket of popcorn in front of me, so I didn't have to get up for a snack. Yeah. But I didn't. What's the word? I didn't think it was too long in a theater setting. If I'm watching it at home, I think it might be a different story, though. Yeah. And I think it could have ended a little sooner.
Yeah, that's where I was at. Like, I thought it could have ended a little sooner. I did enjoy it, but there's like a certain point in the movie where Paul Dano gets taken off to Arkham Asylum, and we're led to believe that he's in a cell next to the Joker. Yeah. But the Joker, like, comes off real cheesy, and I was like, I don't know about that. But then the movie continues on with, what's going on in the storyline. And I was like, okay, I'm back into this. But like that one scene just kind of took me out of it for a minute. And I was just like, all right, when is this going to end? And I was like, please don't like make the Joker be super goofy in whatever next movie that you make. Because I really liked Paul Dano as the Riddler. I wasn't sure what to expect of him as the Riddler because, the Riddler that I knew, that from the previous movies is Jim Carrey.
Yeah, very different vibe.
Very different vibe because he's very like playful and unhinged, but like in a happy way. Right. Whereas this guy's like unhinged in a not happy way, and he just writes all these riddles and like and it was like one thing that I really liked about the movie is that it has a very if you're familiar with the movie Seven, it has a very Seven-ish vibe because all these riddles like the Riddler ends up like tying weird contraptions to people's faces or things like that, and the riddles have to be solved in order to keep people from like blowing up.
No, literally, like, quite literally.
Yes, so very dark. And basically, the Riddler is trying to uncover corruption in Gotham, and I really like that aspect of it because I felt like I know some people don't like politics mixed in with their movies, and that's okay. But sometimes I like it, and kind of was a reflection of what's going on in our world right now, and it showed, the Riddler being a vigilante trying to get rid of corruption, and ultimately, like, Batman kind of starts to question himself as to, like, am I really being a hero by being a vigilante because I've kind of encouraged this person to do the same thing that I do, which is something that we've never seen Batman, like, face before in any of the other Batman movies because he's always just like, I'm a hero, this is what I do.
It's like law, order, right, wrong, no gray area, everything is black and white, and I was obsessed with that, this Batman. I was like, this is a modern Batman, and I'm actually a very big fan. Yeah. And I loved that the Riddler is the first big villain we meet, because I'm tired of the Joker. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. Like, I'm over it. I don't think it's fun or helpful anymore. And I was really interested in seeing this different villain get the spotlight in, like, a completely reimagined way as well. Like, I like Paul Dano a lot, a lot of stuff that he's in. And it was really, like, grungy and like almost like too realistic in a way, right? I was like, oh man, this could actually be happening. I don't know how I feel.
It's like I'm an accountant who does not leave his house and has all these things going on and is trying to destroy the world because I can through the internet and like
like going on in these like dark online chat rooms and like everybody talking about stuff, this like vigilante organizing and activism that's happening. And I was like, this actually happens. Like, this doesn't feel too removed. But it was very politically aware and very timely, I thought, as well.
Yeah, and I like that, in the movie they have a different candidate running for mayor who's not corrupt, and she is pushing to be elected, and she's a ray of hope. And I feel like we need that, we need the ray of hope, because sometimes it feels like everything's doom and gloom, and you're just like, maybe there's somebody out there who actually cares and is not going to be doing things just for money.
No, that was a big thing. I loved that there was like some big themes of like just dirty money and how widespread the corruption actually is, and how it's like everyone's playing that game even if they don't want to be playing that game.
Yeah.
And how like even though like there's like a whole thing where Bruce has to like confront his past and like his parents as like very, very wealthy people, and how their money helped fund some of this corruption, even if it was meant with good intention. It helped create this horrible system, and it really kind of breaks him a little bit. Like I liked this Batman wasn't just like, oh, I'm big macho man, everything's perfect, I'm gonna fix it. And he was really depressed and like had a lot of like PTSD, and we get to see him work through like that grief and that trauma. And he's not portrayed as like, you know, big stunner super hunk Hawkeye. Like he looks unwell.
Yeah, he
part
does.
Of the movie.
He does. He looks very sickly and like, not okay.
Like he's not doing good.
So what's one of the other things that she watched?
Oh my gosh, I'm really all over, but I'm gonna stick to something that's a little gritty, but a little less gritty. And I watched the remake of Firestarter that came out this past year. So full disclosure, I have not read the book or seen the original because, as you all know, I am terrified of anything scary. So even this was a little stretch for me. But I would almost say that this is more thriller than horror. Like it didn't like scare me, like it was more creepy. And I kind of like I can do creepy, right? I can't do boo. I can't do jump scares. But it was really, really interesting to see this adaptation come out now, because it kind of drew on this, like, I don't know, I feel like throwback horror is really popular right now. There's a lot of renewed interest in, like, the 1980s and horror that was, like, written in the 1980s, things that are set in the 1980s, and those same kind of, like, fears and monsters that were popular, 40 years ago are coming back. So that was really interesting to me, but... Little synopsis for those of you like me who haven't read it or haven't watched the original. You're not alone. There's parents, Andy and Vicky, do like a drug trial in college that gives them superpowers, for lack of a better word. And then they have a daughter named Charlie who also has powers, but she's like very powerful because she's born with powers and didn't like get them through the trial. So they're on the run from the government because they're like, they can never find her, they can never know her because they're going to use her to do bad stuff like they tried to do with everyone else who participated in the trial. And they keep her hidden for about 10 years until eventually there's an incident at her school where she absolutely loses control and like blows up a bathroom, basically, because she's the fire starter. Like her power is fire.
Start fire, yeah.
Well, that we see. I don't know. A lot of this movie felt like prequel, and I was like, what's happening next? You know, I was like, okay, now I get the characters. Now where are we going? I don't think there is anything that comes after, but that doesn't make it bad. And after this, that gets the government's attention. She and her dad end up on the run trying to get away from the government. And her dad has to really reckon with, he told her for 10 years to bury her power, never let it out. And that really hurt her.
How old is she in this adaptation?
She's 10.
Okay.
Like, she's real young. Like, she's a child.
Okay, yeah, because I've seen the original. And then the original Drew Barrymore, I think, is also, like, 8 or 9.
I think so. I think actual Drew Barrymore was, like, 8 when it was filmed. So, like, roughly the same age, maybe slightly older. Yeah. But, yeah. And then the government chases them for a while. I'm not going to tell you what happens. But there's a lot of fire. But, yeah, it was really interesting. And I liked Zac Efron in this role as well. I liked, I don't know. Y'all know Zac Efron, like, I met him through High School Musical, that kind of thing, Teenage Heartthrob, and he's done a lot more kind of gritty stuff as he's gotten older. And it was really interesting to see him as this, like, young father figure role trying to do everything to save his daughter. And I thought he did a pretty good job. And it's short. I think this one is a lot shorter than the original. Like, it was a really quick watch. It was maybe, like, an hour and 20 minutes. Like, we whipped through it. But it was really interesting to see the way they updated this older text as well. Because, like, this is written also kind of 1980s at a time when, like, there isn't the same kind of 24/7 news cycle that we have now. There's no cell phones. There's no, like, constantly connected internet activity. And watching them, like, be on the run from the government when everyone has, like, a phone and can take a picture of you was really interesting because it was set now, like in modern times, but they were like a off-the-grid family, basically. Like, they didn't have internet at home. None of them had cell phones. And I don't know how I felt about that. Like, it was interesting that was their way of
dealing with that.
Like, dealing with here's how the government's not tracking them through their iPhone because they don't have an iPhone. And they, like, only get paid in cash for whatever their jobs are. They work under the table. But, it was interesting because then we see a little bit of how, like, the news cycle comes into play as they're on the run, and, like, people see them on the news, and I'm like, okay, but like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was good.
Okay.
But it was very much like, it felt like I was watching a movie that was made in the 1980s.
Okay.
So it was like, it had that like bit of like that slow build energy. Like it wasn't constant like stimulation jump scare. It was very smooth. But I like that.
Yeah.
I think that makes it easier for me to digest. So if you're like me and a scare baby, it was great. It was like, like I can watch like Cujo and stuff like that because it's old and I can separate it in that way. And this felt like that. Like it literally felt like I was watching the original Carrie, like that kind of energy.
Yeah. And that's what I remember the original being like, more like a thriller and, about this kid with superpowers. And the most creepy thing I remember about the original is there's like the government sends this man after her and he has like very heavy pedophile vibes in the original.
So he does come after them in this one too. Less pedophile vibes, but like still weird energy coming off of him. Okay. Like he's got like a big tarot card tattooed on his back of the hanged man. That we see. It doesn't really like, never really explained what that means and why. But he comes back and I think it could have ended about 5 minutes before it did because there's a scene with him right at the end too that I'm like, I don't know if that needed to be there, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like, in the 80s, at least from what I remember, there was a lot more stuff or a lot more coverage on TV and things about children being abducted and pedophiles and things like that. So I wonder if that's why that played more of a role in terms
absolutely.
of like that, But then when you think about it now, it's like that stuff is still a thing, but it's more like, kids being sex trafficked.
Right.
So like,
the vibes were really weird.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Like it was interesting to see. It felt very artistic, and less of like a commentary, if that makes sense. Okay. And I wonder if that was an intentional choice or if that's just kind of what happened. Yeah. But it was interesting. But it literally just felt like I was watching a vintage horror movie. Yeah. And I loved that. But I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what others think about it. So if you do check it out and watch it, let me know. I want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm curious too. All right, so I watched a scary movie as well because it was spooky season when, we assigned ourselves this thing and I was like, all right, I need to watch some scary movies. So I watched Scream, but the Scream from 2022. I've seen the Scream from 1996. So, we are revisiting the Scream story. In the story, it's 25 years later. It's actually 26 years later that the movie came out. But it reunites Courtney Cox and David Arquette and Neve Campbell 25 years after the original murders in Woodsboro. And somebody has come back and has started, murdering people. And we find out that this one girl who left town for a bit, the person is targeting people who are tied to her because she is Billy Loomis's daughter. Okay. And if you don't know, Billy Loomis was the killer in the first Scream. And so, this whole story plays out. And it was interesting because it was kind of like a rehash of the original story, but with different characters, but also is very self-aware, and it talks about its self-awareness. It just, like there's a scene where they're talking about, just like in the original, where they're talking about the tropes of horror and and so, they start talking about what they need to do in order to make this sequel be better than the original, and how to make it different and this and that. And so it was kind of frustrating because that happens early on in the movie, and it basically gives the whole movie away. Because you're like, oh, I see what they're doing here.
Okay.
But it was fun in revisiting the old characters and kind of seeing that dynamic. It was also fun in that in the movie, David Arquette and Courtney Cox were supposed to have been married, and then they get divorced. And in real life, they did get married, and then they also got divorced. So their relationship, does play out a little bit like, oh, we're like friends, but we were once married, and so there's the point where she punches him in the arm because when the murders start happening again, he calls Neve Campbell to let her know that the murders have started happening, but instead of calling Courtney Cox, he just texts her, and so she gets to town and she's like, you sent me this in a text, and she punches him in the arm, and he's like, ow. He's like, you're busy, I don't want to bother you. So if you enjoyed the original and you don't mind things being a little campy and spoiling things for you, then I say check it out. But yeah, otherwise I wouldn't necessarily bother. But
maybe I'd like that, because sometimes if I know what's going to happen, it scares me less.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll try.
Yeah, and it wasn't as gory as the original. There's some stabbings and stuff, but it wasn't nearly from what the original I remember being a lot gorier.
I've got one to share that's kind of funny. It's spooky adjacent, I guess. It's called Blithe Spirit. Okay. It came out in 2021. It's a really quirky rom-com set in 1930s London. basically the premise is a medium named Madame Arcadi, who is played by Judi Dench, inadvertently summons like the ghost of a popular crime novelist's dead ex-wife, who was also his muse and his ghostwriter. Ooh, spooky. And she's mad because she's accidentally summoned for one. And also Charles, the novelist, has remarried. So she's like, obviously I'm going to home wreck this because why wouldn't I? So she's seeking revenge on his current wife, Ruth, and it's really hilarious and over the top and a lot of like, again, kind of like a throwback movie. It's a lot of slapstick humor. It's very like 1930s trope adjacent. And it's a really, really over the top as they all try to like coexist so Charles can get past his writer's block that he's had since Elvira died because she was his muse. With Ghost Elvira helping him write his first screenplay so they can go to Hollywood, become famous, la-di-da. But it's like, it's very funny, and there's some really big themes that I thought were pretty cool, like men taking credit for women's work in a lot of ways. It comes up multiple times in different facets throughout there. One of them is also with the medium, Madame Arcadi, who is not believed by the spiritualist society. She's like dismissed as being a fraud, and they're like, you couldn't have possibly have done this. That's like a level 10 summoning. A woman couldn't do that. And she's like, no, literally I did. How do I fix it? And they're like, you're banned. Get out. And like, we're revoking your membership. And she's like, well, all right then. Guess I'm on my own. And like trying all these spells to fix it, and she just keeps making it worse. But it's like, it's really cute and it's really funny. But I do wish, it's another one that I wish had ended just like 2 minutes sooner. Because it's like, I don't know, there's a lot of ghost energy that comes up in it, and I don't want to spoil anything that happens because like it's really funny, the stuff that goes on. But there's like an extra voiceover scene at the very end that plays during the credits that I'm like, if that wasn't there, this would have been perfect. Because it's like, it turns into this like women's revenge epic that I thought was so funny. Because it's just over the top, and they're like, well, we're gonna fix this and make him pay for taking credit for all of our hard work. And then there's like a voiceover at the end that just like undermines them, and I was like, no, we didn't need that. But otherwise, like, it's really funny. It's a quick watch. It's like, if you like kind of like vintage stuff with Gatsby energy, it's there, and it's just, I had a good laugh about it.
Cool. Yeah, so the last one that I have on my list is Pig, which came out last year, starring Nicolas Cage. And I'd been curious about it because I heard a lot of good things about it, but I wasn't even exactly sure what it was about. But I was like, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to take it home. I like
Nicolas Cage, so yeah. I can see that.
I like Nicolas Cage too, but he chooses to make all sorts of things, so you never know what you're getting with the man.
That's why I like him.
Like,
he does it all.
Exactly. So, it's like sometimes it's like artsy stuff. Sometimes it's just like wild.
Sometimes it's National Treasure.
Sometimes it's just, something that's absolutely terrible. But, because I feel like National Treasure is fun.
It's super fun. We can still like it even if it's not good.
Yeah, for sure. But, and it's funny because the person I was watching it with was like, he really likes being in movies where, like, he does not look good.
No, that's true, actually.
Because in this movie, the premise of the movie is that he is but at first we don't know. He lives in this cabin by himself with this pig, and they go truffle hunting. And so the pig helps him find the truffles, and he looks like a homeless person. Okay. He like is in all these layers of clothing, and like at one point we see him in his long underwear, and like the sweat stains underneath his armpits are like super yellow, and so at the beginning of the film we see this guy played by Alex Wolff. His name's Amir, and he shows up at his cabin to buy truffles off of him, and he trades them for like literally like what looks like $20 worth of groceries, and you're like, really? Because truffles are expensive. But Nicolas Cage takes the groceries. We see him make these delicious looking foods with stuff, and at one point the Amir, before he leaves, he's like coughing to indicate Nicolas Cage probably does not smell very good, and he's like, do you need me to get you a cell phone, or do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? And Nicolas Cage is like, no, I live out in the woods by myself, and it takes place like outside of Portland, and just him and his pig. And so then that night, we see these lights outside, and the pig's like sniffing at the door, and we're like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden these people come crashing into his cabin, and they kidnap his pig.
No, not the pig.
Yeah. And so then he goes on this journey to try and find his pig, to try and get his pig back.
It's like Taken, but it's a pig.
Yes, exactly. And then we find out that he has been living in the woods. We don't know why, but he's been living in the woods. But he used to be like the best chef in all of Portland.
Interesting.
And so he has all these connections. And so with the help of Amir, he goes around to all these different places, including like a weird underground fight club for like restaurant workers where he literally lets people beat the crap out of him so that he can get information about where the pig might be.
That's wild. Yeah, I gotta watch this.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of like waiters and like cooks and stuff in the basement of some place, just fighting it out.
Usually we would fight in the kitchen when I worked in the restaurant.
But yeah, when he shows up, everybody's like, who's this guy? And he's been gone for so long that nobody recognizes him. And so he like takes some like charcoal and writes his name up on the board, and everybody's like, and then you see everybody start putting like their what's supposed to like I think stand in for their money. It's like playing cards or whatever. They're like setting them at their feet like for like they're betting on
weird
him or whatever. Yeah. And so I'm just like watching. It's like, where's this going?
Literally, I was like, I'm so lost already, but I'm invested.
Yes. And the movie's broken up into parts, and each part is named after some sort of dish. So like one's called like salted baguette and wine and something else, and so there are all these meals. And so we learn about his characters throughout the film, that he remembers every single person that he ever served food for, and he remembers every single meal that he ever made for them.
That's creepy.
And so at the end, or near the end, when he finds the person who stole his pig, in order to get the information about where the pig's out, because the guy like does not want to give him any information, he ends up making this dish that he made for this man and his wife that ultimately like made his wife cry and stuff, and it was like right before she tried to commit suicide. And so like it brings all these emotions forth in this man because he has all these memories. And Nicolas Cage is like, I never forget what I fed people, and like he goes through all this trouble to get all these different ingredients to make this meal.
This is bananas.
Yeah, and like at the beginning the cinematography is really pretty. When he's in the cabin in the woods, you see him making stuff, and the flowers just kind of raining down on the pig, and the pig's just kind of like, and he makes the pig like fancy like food too, and like
cute.
And he shares it with the pig, and yeah, it's interesting because like I never thought of this, and I don't know if this is true or not, but like the whole truffle industry is being like it almost feels like illegal drug cartels, because there's like all these people. Because at one point he goes to these people who are also like truffle foragers, and is like, where's my pig, and they're like. They bring in these like tweakers, and they're like, did you take the pig? And they're like, oh no, we didn't take the pig, like.
That's wild. I was like, I guess I didn't realize that truffle pigs were such a hot commodity.
Yeah,
Never had one. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had truffles. I'm
not on the truffle pig market.
I've had like truffle oil on something, but I've never had an actual truffle. So I don't know what they taste like. I know that they're expensive. I know that much. But yeah, so it was good. I was not a huge fan of the ending because it's one of those movies that just kind of like ends, and you're like, I want more. I need more closure.
That's why I read romance. We always get a happily ever after. We know what happens.
But overall, yeah, it was really interesting, and it was filmed really well. The story was not anything that I was expecting, and I will not, spoil anything else, but that just kind of gives you an idea of kind of where the story goes, and you're just like, who is this person? Because a good chunk of the movie we don't know who he is, and and it's like, who is he, and why are people like so impressed by him? Why are people scared when they hear his name? Like, it's like, is he a mob boss?
No, literally.
Is he like John Wick? Like, who is this man? And it's like, no, he's the best chef in all of Portland. And then he just disappeared one day.
Took his pig, and I'm out of here.
Yeah,
I'm
took
going
his
home.
pig. Yep. And it's funny because one of the characters that he meets at one point is like, I thought you were. And he like cuts himself off, but you can tell that he was going to say, I thought you were dead.
Mm-hmm. This is bonkers. I gotta watch this movie.
So that's Pig. Do you have anything else?
I mean, I have one more that I could talk about,
Sure.
I suppose. I also watched Belfast, which won like a ton of awards or was nominated for a ton of awards as well. Came out in 2022. It's set in 1969 Belfast amid what is known as the Troubles. A lot of like animosity and rioting and bombs between like Catholics and Protestants living in Northern Ireland. And it opens up with the August 1969 riots, which were like a huge pogrom against the nationalist and Catholic community in Belfast, and like kicked off what is mostly known as the Troubles. And it's all told through the perspective of Buddy, who's a 9-year-old boy. So it's like very serious subject matter as like his working class Protestant family tries to navigate like everything going on. But he's like, also in school and like has a crush on a girl and like, is dealing with peer pressure and all that kind of stuff. So it's very serious, but told with a lot of like levity and a little bit of humor as well. Like there's some funny moments. Won a ton of awards. It was really kind of cute. It's all in black and white, which was an interesting artistic choice, I thought, because like the opening establishing shot of modern day Belfast is in color. And there's like, they go to see a movie at one point, and the movie that they're watching is in color, but they are in black and white. So everything that's set in like 1960s Belfast, black and white, which was, I was like, I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. But there's like lots of big things about like making hard choices for your family. Irish emigration, which is a huge thing because they talk a lot about if it's safe for them to stay or if they need to move to Australia, just like pick up the whole family and go. And about like the ways that communities had to navigate pressure to pick a side and pressure to like, join basically gangs at this point who were attacking other people's houses and like setting cars on fire. And there's like a couple of really scary scenes where like Buddy gets caught up in a really big riot and they start looting a grocery store and he's just like caught in the fray of it. And like, he makes it home to his mom and he like has stolen a box of like washing powder for the washing machine. He's like, Mom, I got this for you. And she's like, where did you get that? She's so pissed. She's like so angry that he got caught up in this and overwhelmed with everything. Like she marches him back to put it back in like the looted grocery store. She's like, absolutely not. You will never do this again. My son will not be involved in this. And it's just like such a mom moment, I was like, yeah, my mom would have done that too. But then it like devolves into like, because like the army shows up at that point and it like gets very, very serious very, very fast. And it's like, I don't know, it kind of wrenches you all over the place. Also has Judi Dench in it. I don't know. I was on a Judi Dench kick for some reason. And a lot of the actors in the movie are either Northern Irish or connected to Belfast in some way. So that was really interesting.
Saoirse Ronan in it?
Saoirse Ronan's not in it. Katrina Balfe is in it. She's not Northern Irish. She's Republic Irish, but still connected. Jamie Dornan is in it. Kieran Hines, who is also in Game of Thrones. Colin Morgan is in it. And the writer and director, Kevin Branagh, is also from Belfast, and it's loosely based on his own childhood. So it's kind of like semi-autobiographical, and it's, I don't know, you watch a family navigate a really stressful situation, and like they're a working class family, so we see them talk about like debt and like how they're going to pay their bills and like what Christmas is going to be like and like how they're going to support their larger community and their family, and like they both grew up in Belfast, the parents, and they're like, can we leave this place? We don't know anything else, but also this isn't our Belfast anymore. So it's, I don't know, it was pretty good. There was a couple of moments where I teared up a little bit because I was like, oh no. And like I watched it with my husband who's from, not Belfast, but he's from Ireland, and so he's like very familiar with a lot of what was going on, and he's like, yeah, that was made me a little homesick in a way, but it was also very like, that's a very recent part of Irish history, Northern Irish history that's still very raw. But it's interesting to see renewed American interest in it, because like that movie was also very popular over here in North America, and this is coming out at the same time as Derry Girls, very popular TV show, also set in the troubles of Northern Ireland and Belfast specifically. So I don't know, it's part of that same kind of trend. Similar energy, less funny than Derry Girls for sure, a little more focus on the serious, but if you like Derry Girls, you'll like this film as well.
Yeah, I do enjoy Derry Girls, and this sounds interesting. I've seen, I can't remember what the name of the film was, but I remember there was a film that came out probably like at least 10 years ago that was more about like once people started taking sides, and it was about like people in the IRA and like who like, like bombing other people and things like that. But yeah, it'd be interesting to like see more of like how it all started.
It was interesting to see like everything kick off. Like it's literally just like a normal day. Like they're like kids playing in the streets, and then like we watch the riot happen, and it's like, it's really scary. But I don't know, I'm still interested in why it was set in black and white. Because I'm like, I don't know, like it almost removes us from it in a way. Because I'm like, this really wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things. But I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out in a way. So if you watch it, I also want to talk about that. Come talk to me about all the movies I watched, apparently, because I need opinions.
I'm trying to remember it, because I remember like watching Angela's Ashes too, and I'm like, was that in black and white? I don't remember if that was in black and white, because that's also like an Irish film like of like coming of age story or whatever.
Like a stylist. I thought this movie was going to be a little more like Billy Elliot. I'm not going to lie. And like there's some similar themes, but it's a little different than Billy Elliot. But if you like that one, you'll also like this one. There's some cute like father-son moments and whatnot.
But yeah, it's always interesting watching those kind of films, because like I learned so much about other cultures and things that happen in other places, because it's like that, or like reading books. Because I remember in Angela's Ashes, watching when he goes to like live at an orphanage for a bit because his parents just can't afford to like take care of him anymore. And it's just like, wow.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
And there's like some of that stuff that comes up in here too. It's like watching them like, deal with family members getting sick because of working conditions and that kind of stuff. And that's just like a normal thing in the community and in their neighborhood specifically.
Yeah.
And they all have to like come together despite all these divisions that were kind of created as part of this. So I don't know, it's rough, it's interesting. If you don't know anything about the Troubles in Northern Ireland, it does give some interesting context. I mean, with a grain of salt, because it's told by a 9-year-old boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was really interesting and informative. And there's like a little bit at the end where they talk about like how it impacted Belfast's future and how that moment was like really a huge part of history that kicked off like a change for the whole city and the whole country. And it was, I don't know, it was very reflective and I kind of liked that.
Yeah,
it was like watching a memoir.
Okay, cool. All right, well, do we want to do some library news?
Oh, absolutely. So we are already in November and wow, I can't believe it. But we've got some great stuff coming up for you at the end of November, including a program called The Wreck of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, if you want to learn more about historical tragedies, at 6:30 p.m. on Monday the 14th. Come learn about one of the Great Lakes' most notorious shipwrecks.
Yeah, and actually there was an exhibit 2 years ago at MSOE downtown.
Oh, sure.
Because it was called The Two Edmonds, and it was about the Edmund Fitzgerald ship. And then this Edmund, I can't remember what his name was, but he was like a artist from the Milwaukee area who did like covers for Time magazine and stuff. And it was an interesting exhibit. Sorry,
that's a cool thing. Actually, I never thought to put that together. I like that. So definitely come to that on Monday the 14th. We've got Rhyme and Read Lapstick continuing this month on Tuesdays. We've got story times continuing on Thursdays. Registration is required. Reach out if you would like to register. We've got Art Cart to Go on Wednesdays yet again. We've got the AM Book Club meeting for November on Thursday, the 17th at 11 a.m. And this month they are reading, The Sentence by Louise Erdrich.
Cool.
That one's meant to be very good. It's like spooky haunted bookstore set in 2020 Minneapolis.
Okay.
So, and like it talks about like all the stuff that was going on with like
George Floyd and everything.
Okay. So like I've been meaning to read it.
Yeah,
so
that sounds
I
good.
won't be there, but I will be reading that book.
Yeah.
And then of course, with the holiday coming up at the end of the month, the library will be closed on Thursday the 24th and Friday the 25th, but we will be back open on Saturday the 26th for regular hours. We have a teen advisory board meeting coming up on Tuesday, the 29th at 4 p.m. And we have a bunch of stuff happening the first week of December as well, including, drumroll, the Holiday Book Talk with Daniel Golden at 11 a.m. on Saturday, December 3rd. So
Yeah,
definitely tune in for that.
Always fun to hear Daniel's recommendations.
I know. I always find books that I haven't even heard of somehow. I was like, I'm a librarian. How did I not hear about this?
Right.
Like, if anyone should, it should have been us. And then, of course, second week of December, we have the PM Book Club meeting at 7 o'clock. And this month, or next month, I guess, they are reading Bewilderment by Richard Powers. It's about an astrobiologist searching for life throughout the cosmos while raising his unusual 9-year-old.
Okay, I would read that.
An unusual 9-year-old, absolutely.
I was a big fan of the book Contact by Carl Sagan.
Sure.
All about searching for extraterrestrial life. Babe.
I love talking about aliens. I can talk about aliens all day. Do not get me started. And then, of course, we've got the Family Fun Night to Go kit for December coming up on the 13th. Okay, did I miss something important? Oh, I think I did, actually. Digital Resources 101. If you want to learn about ebooks, libraries, digital resources, come hang out on Wednesday, November 16th at 10 a.m. I think those are our big events coming up for the next couple of weeks.
Very good. Well, as always, if you have any questions or comments for your hosts, you can email us at shorewoodstacks@gmail.com. We love to hear from you.
Please reach out. I want to hear what you think of my movies.
Yes, me too. And thanks for listening, and be well. The Shorewood Stacks is produced by Lisa Quintero and Lizzie Jelly for the Shorewood Public Library. Music for the show is by Kevin MacLeod. The song is called Ice Flow and can be found on incompetech.com.